I've kind of adopted a strategy for myself and for my clients. Like, you don't say anything to yourself you wouldn't say to a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't say it to a kid. You shouldn't say it to yourself. If you little 10-year-old, God, you're effing lazy.
Right.
God, you're so stupid. That's dumb. Should this, should that, should this, should that. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I asked my son, Alex, I said, hey, why don't you come work with me? And he's like, yeah, great. I wanted him to come work with me, teach him some skills and stuff like that. And he was kind of not knowing what he wanted to do. And so I sat him down there. I bought a table, I bought a chair for him, got a computer, and sat him down. I gave him a piece of paper and a pencil. I said, hey, I want you to write down 10 things you want to accomplish in your life. And he's like, okay. And he had talked about wanting to go to Peter Luger's to get a steak. He wants a house in New Hampshire in the middle of nowhere where it's cool because that's where we're from. I mean, he had mentioned all kinds of stuff that he wanted. And he sat there for almost an hour and he couldn't come up with one thing. I'm like, ow. Like, and we after I told him, yeah. And I'm like, that's really weird. Like, why could he not get that? No, so I was like, yeah, that's really weird. And so there's what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Imposter syndrome specialist that I know from England. Super, super nice lady, Tara Halliday. And so, I called her. I said, hey, help me understand this. I said, how? Because I understand imposter syndrome. Like, I understand everything we were talking about, but like, how is it that, somebody can do well, but, they're not responsive to what's what we're looking for here, to success and to all the good things that are happening. And so we talked for a while, and basically what we come up with was this, is that when you have something that was traumatic or challenging in your life when you were a kid, and that it basically triggered that fight or flight instinct, whether it was fight or flight, what happens is that even though it starts as a little seedling, it grows into this giant sequoia tree as you get older, because you continually reinforce running away from the pain, running away from the fear, fighting. Your brain is so occupied with doing what it needs to do to protect you that it doesn't allow you to start seeing the things you need to see for good things to happen. Either you don't believe it's available for you, that it can't happen for you, or you're just so focused on something else it doesn't penetrate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. So and here's the thing, like, to give you an example here, when I found out I was going to prison, I was also getting divorced from my now ex-wife. No shocker. So we made a decision to take the kids to a place where we knew they would never go again, so they could never associate that memory. And we said, mom and dad are getting divorced and dad's going to prison. You can imagine being away from your kids for a year and all this stuff happening, how bad it can screw your kids up. And it affected all of them. They've all been through or in counseling. But my son took it especially hard, and he actually ended up trying to kill himself when he was 14 or 15. Fortunately, he didn't know that Tylenol won't kill you. So, but he had a hard time, but the whole thing is that when we are so consumed with running away from the pain, from trying to make the pain go away, from staying stuck in low self-worth, low self-esteem, need for approval, there's no space for us to believe that good things can happen and that all this stuff that's happening for other people can happen for us. So I can read a whole book. I can go, hey, Simon Sinek, great book, Find Your Why.
Right.
I can't find my why. I can't, like, people are, and that's what happens is we got to make space in our brain. We got to clear out some of that programming and some of that crap to make room for the good stuff, to make room for the belief, to make room for the fact that some good things can happen for us. And so that's why I can go to a Tony Robbins event, feel really good when I go there, take 8 pages of notes, and really, come back and put my calendar together, put my goals together, set my notebook out for the next day, all my stuff, and come sit down. On the first day is great. The second day is like, I'm tired, I'll just do it later. Third day is like, as long as I get it done before bed, I'm good. Fourth day is like, weekend's coming, I'll just do the weekend. All right, on Monday. And the next thing you know, and that's just, Rick Carson calls it your gremlin, right? Yeah. It's your gremlin, right? That little whoever inside you that's like, oh, come on back. Yeah. That's not us. Success is not us. And so until we go and figure out what that issue is, which I've fortunately been able to help people figure out, it's not going to go away. And in fact, sorry about that.
You're good.
You have to go ahead.
Yep.
And so until we go back and figure out that and become aware of what it is and do battle with it, it's going to stay there forever. It's not going to go away. In fact, it's going to get worse and worse and worse until you do what I do. And, either severe anxiety, severe depression, PTSD, or you end up, trying to take your own life. So
yeah.
It's
good.
All right. So anyway, the book that really did it for me was a book by Kristen Neff called Self-Compassion. the power of learning to love yourself, I think is what's right. But
Okay.
it's a book about understanding that, in order to heal, in order to feel good about who we are, we need to offer ourselves the same compassion that we would offer to somebody else.
Yeah.
If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm really sick, I'm hurting, I'm sad, I'm having a tough time," I wouldn't say to them, "What are you, lazy? What are you, stupid? You should be doing this, you should be doing that." We would never say that to them.
Right.
Right. And whatever you would say to that person, you need to say to yourself. And so that was the real book, the first book that really got through to me. Helped me understand that, I can't keep whipping myself up and whipping up on myself and being my own worst enemy and succeed. So anyway, long way to get to where we got, but that's what I've uncovered. That's what I've uncovered.
Yeah, I love that because first of all, what you're talking about with, not being able to kind of do it for yourself, no matter what you're going through, no matter what books you get, coaches you get, whatever. I had a coach years and years ago talk about, at those fairgrounds where you have those, it's basically a runway, you put a vest on and you got the bungee cords in your back and you run towards the target and you keep running and you run as much as you can. Your goal is to try to hit that target, but those bungee cords on your back keep pulling you back. And he said, yeah, which bungee cords are you still attached to? Right. That's the reason why you can't hit that target you want. That's why you're not that way.
Right on.
And that was such a eye opener for me of realizing, yeah, I have a ton of these bungee cords and I'm thinking I can outrun them. They're always going to be there until I totally take my sword or whatever and detach from it. Right. I let it go. I take the vest off even at some points.
Yeah.
So
just real quickly, starting to the title of the book is Self-Compassion, the Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself.
Self-compassion.
Yep. Self-compassion, the proven power of being kind to yourself.
And it's by
Kristen Neff.
Kristen Neff.
Awesome. Yeah. If you read like Brene,
show notes.
Yeah. If you go and read Brene Brown's Gifts of Imperfection and learn that you are who you are and have to accept who you are and that everything that's done, you've done, but it's not, it doesn't make you a bad person.
Yep. And
you learn how to accept that you did things, but also care for yourself and love yourself and give yourself the compassion you need. You will free yourself of so much pain. So much, Yeah,
absolutely. And to your point that you just said, we talk to ourselves so terribly that if we had a friend that talked to us the way that we talked about ourselves, we would not hang around that person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've kind of adopted a strategy for myself and for my clients. Like, you don't say anything to yourself you wouldn't say to a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't say it to a kid. You shouldn't say it to yourself. If you little 10-year-old, God, you're effing lazy.
Right.
God, you're so stupid. That's dumb. Should this, should that, should this, should that.
But that's also where some of the trauma comes in of when we did hear that as a kid, right?
Of course.
As you had hurt people. I give the analogy often about, I grew up with a stepdad who would always point out my gut. Now, I grew up a wrestler, a dancer, a performer. I was always exercising. I was always doing something. I didn't consider myself an athlete, but he'd always be like, oh, look at that gut, look at that gut, look at that gut. And now I look back on those pictures and I'm like, what was he talking about? I was like 120 pounds wet. And yet, even as a 50-year-old man today, I still have that trauma around my gut of like, oh, people are looking at my gut. People look at my gut.
Yep.
It's fascinating where it just sticks with us.
And I'm not trying to outdo you. I'm just trying to read.
No, it's great.
I still remember being 12 years old, 11 years old. My dad's sitting in his spot on the table and he's eating. And I had my shirt off. It was the summertime. And, I had that little belly that, and he goes, you're always going to have that. My dad have it, I have it, and you have it, and you're always going to have it. It's never going to go away.
Talk about programming.
Literally, right? And if you're an Italian family where, my mother's motto is if you leave the table hungry, it's your own fault.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. Like, you eat it,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Eat as much as you want, so
Yeah.
it's brutal. Yeah.
Hey, there's no reason to learn how to own your role on your own. If you like that clip, go ahead and click right here for another one. Or if you want to watch the entire podcast, go ahead and click right here. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.